Well, I am old enough that all this gadgetry is, a little bit beyond me, so I will make mistakes with the slide program, I'm sure. I'm presenting a project I did for Mike Jacobs' History of Minorities in America class. We were asked to evaluate a series of social studies textbooks in terms of their treatment of a minority group, and I chose Native Americans. Issues to consider included positive or negative bias and the degree of sympathy the author had toward the minority group. We were then to compare the textbooks with Ronald Tukaki's A Different Mirror, the textbook for our class. To look at the issues of author sympathy and bias, I tried to answer one question. Were the Native Americans presented as agents or decision makers who had impact on events? Giving them agency would suggest a positive bias and sympathy. Portraying Native Americans as victims of the dominant culture or as tools to tell the story of the dominant culture would suggest a negative bias and lack of sympathy. I chose textbooks ranging in time from 1944 to 2009. I wanted to explore the treatment of Native Americans over time and then compare those text accounts with the textbook I use in my classroom, which is the 2009 text. To focus my search, I selected 3 narratives: Pocahontas in Jamestown, Sacagawea and the Lewis and Clark story, and Cherokee removal in the Trail of Tears. Each of these stories has the potential to show Native Americans as agents negotiating between two worlds, their tribal world and that of the Euro-American world they come in contact with. The next 3 slides show the findings from my review of the textbooks. The information in the right-hand column, to your right, comes from the textbooks I reviewed. The information in the left-hand column provides an example of the story told with agency. The example of agency for Pocahontas comes from a book called Love and Hate in Jamestown. It shows Powhatan deciding to spare John Smith's life for a reason: access to valuable trade goods. In the 1944 textbook, Pocahontas is a minor player in the larger story of the Virginia colony. She is identified as the daughter of a warlike chief. Her marriage to John Rolfe brought peace. In the 1963 text, Pocahontas is a side note in the John Smith story. The 1987 text drops Pocahontas for a massacre narrative. None of the texts offer alternative interpretations to John Smith's account or any details to explain the decisions that led to a warlike chief or a marriage of peace. The agency example for Sacagawea comes from the Journals of Lewis and Clark. Both quotes are from Lewis. They indicate the Corps respected Sacagawea as a valued member of the group and suggest her impact on the Corps. The 1944 text names Sacagawea as a guide without any details to specific contributions. According to the 1963 text, Lewis and Clark made the whole trip without seeing any Indians at all. Sacagawea is not mentioned. The 1987 text suggests that Sacagawea passed along advice from the Shoshone. It doesn't offer details as to why the Shoshone would offer advice or what that advice was. The 2009 text suggests agency. The Shoshone decide to sell horses. The agency example for Cherokee removal and Trail of Tears comes from The Earth Shall Weep. It acknowledges that the Cherokee contested removal and the tribe split over the issue. The 1944 text doesn't mention the Cherokees. The rest of the texts present Cherokee removal as part of their coverage of Andrew Jackson's presidency. The 1963 text presents Cherokees as victims of Jackson's policy. The 1987 text uses the Cherokee court cases to make the point that contracts shouldn't be violated. The 2009 text coverage is similar to that of the 1963 and 1987 textbooks. None of the textbooks mention the split in the tribe or the leaders who emerged to deal with removal. In Ronald Takaki's A Different Mirror, Pocahontas and Sacagawea aren't mentioned. Pocahontas is replaced by Captain William Tucker's story. Tucker made a treaty with the Powhatan. He then persuaded the Indians to toast the agreement and gave them poisoned wine. Jefferson's removal policy replaced Sacagawea. The Cherokee removal story is in the book. John Ross, one of the Cherokee leaders, is mentioned. However, the emphasis is on U.S. government actions against the Cherokee. All three narratives emphasize Indians as victims of American treachery and political power. While there are hints at agency or Native peoples as decision makers interacting with the Euro-American culture, the Native American as victim and the Native American as a tool to tell the story of the dominant culture dominate